welcome to this new Marvelous Designer tutorial. In this one we'll be creating this elasticated summer dress that's been nicely demonstrated by this model in Marvelous Designer for us. We'll be using some elasticated on the dress from the waist up, and then we'll have a skirt and underskirt segments as seen on the bottom that are on lighter cotton material to give us some nice folds and light fabric action. So that's all there really is to show, and we'll just jump straight into it. So to start this, we'll go to a new project, and we can go avatar. Female B is what I'll be using. So we'll load this in. For the first bit, we're just going to create the top half. So I'm just going to go on the 2D pane and click Create Rectangle, and then in the center of the screen I'm just going to left click once and it comes up with this pop-up Create Rectangle. I'm going to give it a width of 60 and a height of 30, and this is using centimeters as seen here, and I'm going to click OK, and that will bring this into the world. So I'm just going to reset this to the 2D alignment, and I kind of want it just sort of in the chest area. And what I'm going to do is Control C on this, and then right click, click Symmetric Paste, and you'll see there's now this blue box around the two. That means whatever I do to either of these happens to the other. As this one will be going behind our avatar, you can see the normal is inside out here. So we've got this light white side and then this darker grey side. You want the light white facing out. So I'm just going to click flip horizontally, and now we need to move this behind our character. But we're going to do this in a special way that we get a nice shape to begin with before we've even started rendering or simulating. So in our 3D view, go to this avatar icon, which is the face, and you'll see we have this first one selected, Show Avatar. Well, we also want this point next to it. It's called Show Arrangement Points. And as soon as you click that, you see all these blue spots surround our avatar. And these are points that have been generated for this avatar that automatically bend and place fabric in accordance. So if I left click this piece of garment, you'll see as I hover over these blue spots, it gives me this indication of how it will look in that spot. So I'm going to go for a middle one, and I'm going to go for this one that's just in front of the stomach, and it kind of starts below the armpit. And I'm going to do the same on the back. So now that is surrounding our avatar, and we can sew these up inside to inside and outside to outside. And as soon as we simulate, these will be attached, but they will fall straight to the ground. So we need to actually set up the elastication. To do that, we're going to need something called internal lines, and these will be points we can elasticate and give shape to. So I'm going to click this split option by right clicking on this edge, clicking split, and I'm going to go to uniform split so I get exact distances between them all, and I'm going to do 15 points. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. Now we have these on the one side as before. Because this is symmetrified, we only have to do this in the one shape. That's why doing symmetrical is important. You can copy and paste it and do it both. You can do it on both manually, but that's just a waste of time. So now we're going to use this red Create Polygon button here, and this allows us to create internal polygons, and we get this little red dot. Now this dot will attach to all of the points we have made in this fabric. So what we want to do is go to one of these sides, go and start at this top one underneath the top line, and it will snap to that internal point, and then if we bring it across, it will snap to the one on the other side, and then just double left click and it will create a line inside. And now we just want to do that for them all, and as you can see, it's also being copied into the symmetric paste. So we'll just keep going. Okay, now that's been done, we can begin our elastication process. So first thing is we want to use this button in the 3D viewer called Pin Box. And that's similar to these tacks that can be tacked onto the avatar and stop the fabric from moving. If we hold left click and drag over this top line and simulate, you'll see that this fabric is not falling to the ground even though it should be. And that's because this pin stops the fabric, that part of the fabric, from moving. So I'm just going to reset the 3D arrangements back so they're not sewed, and we'll begin the next step. So in the next step, in the 2D part, right click and click Lock All Patterns. And this is just going to lock the shape of the pattern so we can only move internalized things which don't change the actual shape of the fabric. And then we want to left click over all these, internal lines, and click Elastic and turn that on. Now I found a good ratio was 55 and then 30 in the strength. Now let's unlock all the patterns, and in the top line, this one we have pinned, we want to turn the elastication on here and do something a bit stronger because we don't want this to actually move. So I'm going to give it a ratio of 0. But the last one I'm not going to elasticate because I'm going to go that straight into the skirt, or we can do a smaller elastication of about 60 with a strength of 10. Now let's simulate, and you'll see how the elastication process has started. Okay, but we need to give it a better shape than that. So we're going to unpin those top ones. And I'm going to move these out slightly and also up. And now when I simulate, we get a much better spread. And that top one, we just want to weaken the elastication on. We'll try about 60 like the others. Okay, so that position didn't work particularly well, so we right click on these after selecting them and move them again, move them slightly up, not as far this time, and that's working a little better. Now we'll be changing some details anyhow, so for now we'll just leave it as is. We're going to create the skirt next. So the skirt is just going to be a rectangle, so we'll click the grey rectangle button, left click, and create something with the width of about 75 to, well, we'll go about 85 to 50, a length of 50. And in this one we don't need to do anything except sew that to the bottom, Control C, Control V after selecting it, and then just placing it right on top so it spawns in the same point. And we'll move it behind our avatar and click flip horizontally. So now we have that white facing out, and move the back to the back side of the dress. And so the back to the back and skirt to skirt. Now let's simulate. And now we have that nice thin skirt. So once we simulate this all together, we should hopefully get something with a bit more of a defined shape. But we're going to first off create some new fabric materials. So we're going to add one over here, and we'll name this dress skirt, and just give it a preset of cotton, and select the two skirt parts here, and in fabric you see it's signed to default fabric. Well, if we click the drop down box, we can click dress skirt, and you've already seen it, the simulation properties change. Now we can add stuff like a bit of density to it, so that's going to make it fly out a bit, and if we give it some hefty weight, it's going to make it just sit there. And for the default fabric, we'll go through and see what gives a good impression. So the chiffon tends to extend it, and things like denim can give some really profound shapes, as you can see. So I think we're going to go with that maybe. And then there's leather, which is quite similar to denim, rib knit, and obviously you can go through all these till you find something that gives a decent shape like you would want. And I think I'll go for that. Now the thing, again, you got to be careful with is this top one. We'll give it a stronger ratio again to about 40, because when animating, that part could easily fall down, and because it's elasticated, once it begins to fall, it will shrink together pretty quickly, and it's just then you got to re-simulate everything. So the best way is to make sure that top one is just stuck to the character. So if we select all that and then click Reset 3D Arrangement, and we'll get some optimum positions. So we'll move this back and up a bit, and then if we simulate, we now have that elasticated look we were going for. But you'll notice everything here is a bit sharp. It's not exactly what we're wanting. Well, to do that, we'll just have to up the quality of the particle distance here. So the particle distance will up the quality of the amount of particles on how close they are together, I think. It ups the amount of quality in the dress, so if we set that to 10, you'll instantly notice how much smoother everything becomes. But obviously, with that increased quality becomes increased processing time. And again, at this point, it's still fine to just kind of go look for something that maybe gives a bit more of the shape you want. The only thing I'll say is something that might sound obvious is when changing all these, make sure it's actually simulating, otherwise obviously you won't notice a change until you re-simulate and find out it's nothing like you wanted. So I really like this kind of pattern. And that's our dress, and you might find that skirt's maybe a little long for your liking. A little wide, there's too many folds, so we can just move everything in by 5, and I'm doing that by left clicking, holding shift on this edge so it can only move in one direction, and then as I move it, click right on the mouse button, and it allows me to enter the distance I want to move it. So we've just shortened that material down, and we've still got this nice looking skirt material. So the last thing I want to do is obviously add that little transparent section, but we're going to do that last after we've added a texture, so we can really get a feel of how it looks. So to grab a texture, you can get it from anywhere you want. I actually just grabbed mine from Google, obviously, and we're going to just grab an image and place it as the design. So to do that, we can use our fabric tools here, and where you see texture above colour, I'm going to click this little grid button. I'm going to get the pattern I use. So again, I just did a quick Google search for a flora pattern, and as you can see, it's automatically attached. But it's a bit stretched, it's a bit warped, because it's a bit small for the dress. So to change that, we go to this new tab now, Texture Transformation. And I'm going to stop simulating this. We get the width, angle, and height, and we can even lock the aspect ratio of the image. I'm actually going to set this to about, if we do 70, 50, and I'm going to try and keep that sort of offset. It was about 14 for my image. And now we have much more detailed quality image. We could probably up it again to about 100, 80. Now obviously that makes the image much bigger. But if we made it any smaller, it would begin to have this weird tiling effect here, where it obviously, because the image is just a pattern design and it's small, we can see where it repeats. But I've just been able to move that up and stop it from having that repeating look. And now we're going to do the same for the dress skirt. So I just use the same picture, texture, that picture, and same thing here. I'm going to do about 60, 45. As you can see, the skirt is actually a bit longer, so we need to give it a good design height and width to stop it from having that obvious tiling. So now I've got this nice looking flowery pattern on my summer dress, and we just need to add one more thing to it, and that is our transparentness. So again, like I said when showing you the original, if we just did this dress, so if we just copied the skirt and brought it out, moved it up and attached it to the same point as the original, as you can see, once it's settled a bit, it really adds to that width around the waist for the skirt, and I just don't like how that looks. So that's why I kept it at just the one layer and effectively cheated by doing it differently. What I did was I did this. I went to the side and used that same split method we did before, but I kept at the top where I said split into two lines. And I did line 1, I set it to about 5 centimeters, so we had this small material here. Did the same on this side, so I'll move that about. So split, line 1, 5, split, line 1, 5, split, line 1, 5. And I'm going to do as we did in the top part of the dress before, and create an internal line. Now, rather than being an elasticated internal line, this one's going to be attaching our second part of the skirt to. So we get the length of this line, which we made 75. We can do that by left clicking this edge and it tells us the length. And we know this is a distance of 5, and we want to have this transparent part available to see. So I'm going to left click to create a right angle, and I'm going to give it a height of 10 centimeters and a width of 75. Now don't worry too much about this image being skew-if like that, as we're going to be changing the material anyway. So we'll flip that horizontally. I select this one and move it underneath, and make sure to sew these up, but do the top part of this new part of the skirt to that internal line, and attach the outsides to the outsides. Now if we were to simulate right now, this part would go on top of the original skirt, which we don't want. First I'm going to separate these by creating a dress skirt. Actually, we'll just click copy on dress skirt. We can do dress skirt T for transparent. And what I did to give it a nice effect was I clicked desaturation to make this black and white. And we need to assign these to the new fabric, so dress skirt T. We will use this move graphic tool here, which I don't think I explained before, but I'm going to move this down to stop that pattern from looking so bad. And then in dress skirt T we also have this opacity down at the bottom, and I set this to about 0.9, not 9. Oh yeah, it's 0 to 100, so about 90 or 95 if you wanted. So I'm going to go for about 90 at first. And now what we need to do is actually take this skirt, reset it, and make sure these new parts are inside the skirt arrangement here. And we're going to use these things called layers. So if we left click on these two parts, the original skirt, the long skirt, and click layer 1, and leave these at layer 0, you'll probably have a warning pop up saying we need to change these back for the simulation to work properly. So what this means is the program is now told that this layer needs to be on top of this layer and this layer. So when we simulate and the build, it will make sure that the skirt, oh, went wrong there, because that starts far too low down. It will make sure that the dress skirt is on top of everything else. But that causes simulation issues if we keep it like that. So once everything's arranged in place like so, we then click these two and put it back to layer 0. And although we won't notice a change, it just makes the simulation much more stable. And then we can mess about with this elasticatedness. And obviously you can resimulate everything if you wanted. To get a really good look of the dress. And that's it. That is our elasticated dress working. We can do our motion. I'm just going to save this first. SD tutorial. And if we click motion, female B, and we just load in any of the motions and click this little running person here, we can get a quick look of our dress in animation action and look at how all the folds work with the elasticatedness and the transparency. And then we can just pause at any time and just have a look at this dress we've created. And again, we can make a smaller particle distance to really let that detail shine through. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, a dislike if you didn't, a comment if your opinions are otherwise. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions or advice, as always you can follow me on Twitter, which is @Sam_BA_Jones97, and as always don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more. Alright, thanks guys.